If you go back and look at the very earliest versions of KDE, it looks very different, right? It's very grey, there's a lot of widgets that aren't really a thing anymore, it looks a little bit off, but you can see the DNA of KDE in there. You can see how that thing became what we have today. Nowadays, we have the mostly minimal Breeze theme. Personally, I'm quite a fan of Breeze. I know there's some criticism of it out there, but I don't ever want to see KDE go down the route of desktops like GNOME. But before we had the Breeze of today, we had a much more vibrant, a much more bubbly look of the KDE 4 era, the Air and Oxygen themes. But what if I told you that somebody was out there and was working on bringing these themes back to KDE now and having them be fully working? There have been like modern ports and third-party things out there, all of those things exist, but official support within KDE. From the blog of Philip Filler, beating an old but not dead horse, what to do with the Oxygen and Air themes. Now, a reasonable person might say, you don't have to do anything. It's okay to leave those designs in the past and leave them where they're at. But where's the fun in that? Minimalism came in like a wrecking ball somewhere around 2013. It delivered a terminal diagnosis to all but a few prevailing designs at the time. One of them, called Oxygen, had reigned supreme in KDE Plasma. As with many others, its demise was inevitable. Anyone aspiring to demonstrate that they were building something new and modern had to close the door on older designs. As someone who first started using KDE during the later releases of its 4th generation KDE 4, I found the Oxygen design quite likable and pleasant. By that I mean the icons, the desktop theme, the application look, the window decorations, really, the whole package. Although today we often talk about Oxygen alone, there was also Air when it came to desktop themes. Air was in fact the default theme for the majority of KDE 4 releases, while Oxygen was its sidekick. So this was shortly after the release of Windows 8, which was a major shift for the design language from Windows 7. With 8.1, you started to see a bit of a shift back to that, but it was still that very flat tile design. Not long after this, we saw macOS Yosemite, which still wasn't fully flat, but they were flattening out a lot of elements. By that time, Android KitKat was also pretty flat, not as much as it is now, but it was all going in that direction. And the web, well, the same thing was happening on the web as well. Interesting, bubbly web design that you saw in the 90s, that was basically going the way of the dodo. The themes, that being Air and Oxygen, survived the major transition from KDE 4 to Plasma 5 and remain part of the official KDE packages. That move to Plasma 6 did not change that, although the desktop theme stopped being shipped alongside Breeze. More specifically, Oxygen was relocated to the optional Oxygen repository, while Air was left out. This feels like an undeserving fate for a theme that played a significant role in the KDE 4 era, and for a theme that offers a complementary, lighter experience to the darker look Oxygen provides, which is why work is underway on Air's comeback in Plasma. Funny number. I'm not gonna say it. You know what the number is. When this work first started, there was a merge request open for it in KDE, restore the Air desktop theme. Air used to be the default theme in KDE 4 and was shipped alongside Oxygen. The two are complementary. Air was light, Oxygen was the dark. Oxygen was moved to this repo. Air had been removed from libplasma beforehand. Both themes still work, and there's no reason not to install both of them and give users an option to have a light panel when using Oxygen design. This commit restores the Air theme in the state it was before its deletion, and uncommonly in KDE, this got a bunch of thumbs down. This comment from David Ebenson summed up the opinion quite well. If we are shipping something, we are now responsible for all bug reports of something we dropped years ago. This is a huge maintenance burden. I've just tried this theme, and it looks bad. That's not just colors. There is no benefit to KDE of shipping as a first-party thing, only cost. There are forks already on the store, let's keep it there. Now, this didn't look bad because, like, Oxygen just looked bad or Air just looked bad. It looked bad because the theme was actually broken. From Philip, I wouldn't have submitted this patch without committing to fixing up the theme before 6.7 releases. I have a KDE 4 environment, I'm looking at it in order to compare what needs to be fixed so the theme reflects its old design the best it can. I'm also looking at the Plasma 6 environment and compiling a list of all new things it needs and have already added support for new tooltips with this here and have attempted to fix this here, which is best implemented in lib Plasma. Air has less issues than the Oxygen desktop theme we're already shipping, which I also want to fix up before 6.7 and have already been sending patches to fix critical things before 6.6. In addition to that, I have merged this patch that contributes to restoring its look. Come weekend, I'm going to publish a post I'm writing about these themes, which is this one here, detailing everything about fixing them up and inviting others to pitch in as well. Air carries artistic and historic value as it was the default theme in KDE 4, and I want to restore it back to a good state. Back to the main post. Air and Oxygen, KDE 4 versus today. Here's some screenshots fresh in a virtual machine housing Kubuntu 14.04. So this is going to be the Air theme, and this is Oxygen. This is what it looked like on KDE 4 back in 2014. This is how it should be looking. And this is how they look in 2026 on Plasma 6. You can see that a lot of it is still there, but there's very clearly things that are not working how they should be. What's the first thing you notice? For me, it's the Oxygen and Air we're using headers and footers in applet dialogues, way before someone thought of adding them to Breeze, coupled with the fact that it's easy to reintroduce them today from a technical point of view. It begs the question to be asked at some later point, should we re-add headers? The second notable difference would be that present-day Oxygen looks different. The Windows Vista-like glossy and gradient-heavy panel is gone, and the tasks that sit in the panel no longer have a frame box with a pronounced blue glow on the hover and press. I haven't been able to quite dig up why and how these divergences happened, but my hypothesis is that it was a conscious restoration of the much older Oxygen design pre-KDE 4.2. For stylistic reasons, I'm guessing someone also changed the text input field and the buttons to be dark instead of light. On the other hand, the Air theme is closer to its original design. Excluding structural changes that can't be influenced, it's noticeable, however, that some elements lack padding and that widgets should be more transparent to match the light and airy feel the theme aspired to. The next important thing is that a lot of icons are goners. There's nothing that can be done about this in the desktop theme, since in Plasma 6, themes can't use their own icons. Users have to pair these old themes with an icon theme of their choice. Unfortunately, if the Oxygen icon theme is used, we get some mismatched symbolic and colored icons and some missing icons, so there's work to be done there to restore the full icon experience. Obviously, in the years since KDE 4, there's been some icon renames, there's been some icon additions, and a bunch of other things like that where is gonna kind of break a little bit, at least out of the box. The fact that it works as much as it does with how little work has been done in keeping these themes around. Great job loading it. How little work has been done in keeping these themes around, it's genuinely impressive. What could and should be fixed? I've identified several critical bugs and glitches with Oxygen. All three of the issues shown in the pictures affected legibility because there was just not enough contrast between elements. Fortunately, they all should be fixed by the time Plasma 6.6 is released this month. In addition, I merged fixes that restore Oxygen's original action button, and I also added support for newer tooltips you see in some places on the desktop. These changes will land in 6.7 since they're not quite bug fixes. So here is a selection of before and afters, and as you can see, it is quite a bit more readable and quite a bit more in line with the original design of what Oxygen and Air were trying to be. From here on, there is additional work to do. Firstly, cleaning up the existing files, removing the SVGs that are no longer being used, the ones that are being used, cleaning those up internally, removing unused layers, adjusting document margins, documenting things better, things like that. 2. Improving looks all the while making the themes resemble the good parts of KDE 4 more, involves a parallel process of tracking if there's glitches in Plasma 6 and looking at the KDE 4 version to see what looked better and what could be improved on. Here, it's important to add that some things are structurally different in Plasma 6, and work on the desktop theme just can't solve it. Menus and some tooltips are not styled by the theme, icons are provided by the icon theme, and things like that. 3. adding new graphics. This involves testing with all of the Plasma 6 components to see what needs to be added to complete the theme, and raises interesting questions like, should headers and footers be implemented? For instance, both air and oxygen are in need of new SVGs that would give them their own design for switches. Now, the ultimate question is, why even bother with this? Why bother preserving an old theme like this? It's not like it's going to become the main theme. It's not like it's even going to be a theme that most people actually use, so what's the point? We don't usually knock down impressive old buildings simply because they are no longer trendy, nor do we cast aside good artwork just because it's fallen out of fashion. Leaving old code behind, on the other hand, is often perfectly reasonable. Code has little inherent value beyond the utility it provides. In that sense, it's much like replacing outdated home installations. Everyone is happy to adopt new technology when it offers clear benefit. In many cases, but as you've seen from things like X11, for example, there's a lot of people who, even if there are clear benefits, still want to keep using that old system, so that's not always the case. Also, it's definitely not the case with design. Artwork such as Oxygen carries genuine artistic value. Even if we might approach certain aspects differently today, it's still hard not to admire the beauty of the details found throughout its many parts, and being the main theme in KDE 4, it also carries historic value. Thankfully, this old theme is still around because there has always been someone in the KDE community willing to step in and patch it up. I'm sure a sizable number of users, myself included, are very grateful to these people. Still, despite their efforts, the theme has effectively been on life support. We can admire and appreciate it, but if we don't do what we can to keep it functioning properly, someone may eventually reach for the deprecation axe when Plasma 7 comes knocking. From a technical cost and cost-benefit perspective, continuing to support themes that are no longer part of the default offering means spending energy on maintenance with diminishing returns. As dismissive and neglectful as that point of view may be of artistic and historic considerations, it becomes much harder to argue against if the porting candidate is in poor shape. So the goal I'm putting forward is, air and oxygen should look their best when users update to Plasma 6.7. And you know what? I wish him the best of luck. I hope this project goes well, even if it's not the look I'm going to use for Plasma, because as I've said, I do like modern Breeze. I think Breeze looks good. But at the same time, there is something here that I can appreciate. There is a clear design philosophy which is different to what we have today, but is still a coherent design that made sense for the time. For people that like this look, I want them to have that as an option, and I'm glad there are people around who are trying to keep this alive. So, let me know, when you first saw KDE, what was the first design it had? Was it Modern Breeze? Was it Oxygen? Was it something even earlier? And what was your favorite era of KDE design? Is it now? Is it sometime in the past? Do you want things to change going into the future? I'd love to know. And when this is ready, are you going to use it? So, like the video, go like the video, go subscribe as well, let me know your thoughts down below, and if you like the video, I said that, if you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon subscribe Starly Bearer Pay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and I totally didn't forget how my outro goes. Don't worry about it.
Something like this.